It started with the trash. For Theo, the late-night sounds of clattering bins were nothing new. Suburban life came with its perks. Cheap rent, quiet streets, the occasional raccoon treating his driveway like an all-you-can-eat buffet. It was the soundtrack of monotony, and Theo had grown so used to it that he rarely even glanced out the window anymore. But tonight, something was off. The sound was rhythmic, a little too careful. Raccoons weren't methodical. They were nature's drunk burglars, leaving trails of chaos and overturned lids. This was different, precise, intentional. Theo sat in his armchair, sipping a lukewarm beer and pretending he couldn't hear it. Denial had always been his strong suit. The TV droned on about weather patterns, his phone buzzed with spam emails, and the clock on the wall ticked an uneven thunk, 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 as though it too were wary of what was happening outside. Then came the voice. Theo's head snapped up. Did the trash just talk? Number nope? Not possible. He had clearly spent too much time alone this week. Work-from-home life had shriveled his social skills into a raisin. Last week, he'd talked to his toaster like it owed him rent money. Now he was imagining sounds. Except, is this food? The voice came again, low and musical, with a sort of lilting confusion that made Theo's spine prickle. He froze. The beer can hovered midair. Okay, he muttered under his breath. Either someone's messing with me, or I've finally lost it. Theo decided there was only one mature course of action. Investigate the situation in his slippers while holding a rolled-up newspaper as a weapon. He cracked the door open, peeking through the gap. Hello? The porch light buzzed weakly above him, casting just enough light to illuminate the driveway, and the thing hunched beside his trash can. Theo blinked. It wasn't a raccoon, or a stray dog, or a confused neighbor looking for their car keys. It was a woman. Sort of. She crouched low to the ground, long fingers carefully sifting through discarded wrappers and pizza boxes with the precision of an archaeologist at a dig site. Her silhouette was tall and willowy, though oddly angular, as if someone had sculpted her bones out of wire and forgotten to round off the edges. Her hair, or what looked like hair, billowed around her head like drifting smoke, dark with a faint shimmer, as though flecks of starlight had gotten tangled inside. Her skin glowed faintly under the porch light. Not like someone wearing too much glitter at a music festival. No, this glow was beneath the skin, a pale silver luminescence that shifted and pulsed ever so slightly, like light trapped in water. And she was muttering to herself. Theo swallowed hard, gripping the rolled-up newspaper tighter like it was a baseball bat. Excuse me? The woman froze mid-movement, fingers clutching a crumpled spaghetti can. Slowly, very slowly, she turned her head toward him. Theo's heart stopped. Her eyes were enormous, wide and perfectly round, the color of polished chrome. They reflected the porch light and Theo's startled face back at him like a pair of tiny mirrors. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Finally, the woman broke the silence. Are you the garbage keeper? Theo blinked. Am I the what? The keeper. She gestured vaguely to the bins, still staring at him. The overseer of these food relics. What? The woman tilted her head, expression unchanging, though her hair, still moving as if underwater, flickered faintly green. She held up the can, inspecting it. You have discarded nourishment, she said, as if explaining to a particularly slow child. If you are done with it, may I have it? Theo lowered the newspaper, his brain short-circuiting. You want my trash? Yes. That's not food. That's garbage. She frowned, or at least he thought she did. Her face shifted in a way that implied disappointment, though her lack of eyebrows made it hard to tell. Why did you put food in the garbage? Because it's not food anymore. It's old, gross, expired. Define gross. Theo opened his mouth, then closed it again. He was officially arguing semantics with a glowing woman who'd been rummaging through his leftovers. Fantastic. He'd hit a new low. The woman studied him carefully, as though evaluating whether or not he was edible. After a long pause, she said, "You are hostile." "What? I'm not." "I will leave." She turned sharply, her hair swirling into a dark storm cloud as she moved toward the street. Wait, hold on." Theo ran after her, slippers slapping against the pavement. "You can't just walk off. What are you even? Who are you? Where did you—" "I am leaving the premises of hostility," she announced matter-of-factly, not bothering to slow down. "I'm not hostile." Theo groaned. "Look, just stop for a second. Are you hungry?" She stopped. Her glowing eyes narrowed, reflecting his face back at him. "Possibly." "Then come inside," Theo said before he could stop himself. "I'll give you real food, not trash food. Food. The woman tilted her head, the edges of her hair flickering pale blue. "What is food? Something better than garbage, trust me." She stared at him for another long, unnerving moment, as though scanning his soul for fine print in a bad contract. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. I accept your invitation, garbage keeper." Theo sighed. "My name's Theo. I will call you Keeper. That's fine." Theo led her up the steps, suddenly very aware of how ridiculous this was. He had just invited a glowing, trash-digging alien woman into his house. It was either the best decision of his life or the dumbest, probably both. The woman paused at the doorway, peering suspiciously at the porch light. "It hums." "It's a light bulb." "Light bulb." She said the word as though testing its weight on her tongue. "Strange." Theo gestured her inside. "You'll get used to it." She stepped through the threshold, ducking slightly under the doorway, and froze. Her silver eyes widened. "This is a dwelling." Yeah, it's my house." "Dwelling," she repeated softly, turning her head in slow, careful arcs as though cataloging every object in the room. Her hair shimmered faintly gold. "It smells of you." Theo frowned. "It smells like what?" "You." "Great. Now I feel self-conscious." The woman ignored him, crouching down to inspect the rug. Theo sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, spaghetti or mac and cheese?" She looked up sharply. "Spaghetti is known to me." "One spaghetti coming right up," Theo muttered, heading for the kitchen. He had no idea what he'd just gotten himself into, but as the woman prodded the lamp like it was an alien artifact, he got the sinking feeling that his life would never be the same. Theo was beginning to suspect that he wasn't fully prepared for alien house guests. It started with the spaghetti. He'd made the fastest version possible, boiled noodles and jarred sauce, still slightly lukewarm, because Theo had lost all patience somewhere around her third comment about how the water container hums strangely. It took Theo 3 minutes to plate the food and set it down in front of her on the kitchen table. Liara, as she now called herself, though she said her full name was untranslatable with your current throat limitations, stared at the spaghetti with silent, unwavering intensity. "You gonna eat it or interrogate it?" Theo asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Her silver eyes flicked up to him, then back to the plate. "This is food?" "Yes," Theo sighed, stirring his own helping of noodles. "Spaghetti. Humans eat it all the time." Liara slowly extended one long, pale finger and poked the noodles, as if testing for signs of life. Her expression remained unreadable, though her hair, still shimmering and floating like a weightless cloud, shifted faintly green. "Do you not have spaghetti where you're from?" Theo asked, trying to sound casual. She sniffed the noodles cautiously. "No." "Anything like it? Pasta? Tomatoes?" "We do not consume substances that wiggle." Theo stared at her. "It's not wiggling, it's cooked. Software perfectly safe." "Softness is suspicious," she said, eyeing the fork Theo had provided like it might bite her. Theo groaned. "Okay, look. Watch me." He scooped a forkful of noodles and stuffed them into his mouth. He chewed theatrically, throwing in a satisfied, delicious. See? Liara tilted her head, still skeptical, but after a long pause, she mimicked him. She picked up the fork, though she held it awkwardly like a scalpel, and twirled it through the spaghetti with surprising precision. When she finally took a bite, her glowing eyes widened slightly. Theo leaned back smugly. Told you. Not bad, huh? Liara chewed carefully, brow furrowing. After swallowing, she announced, This tastes of crushed vegetation, carbonized fruit essence, and earth residue. Theo blinked. It's tomatoes and noodles. That is what I said. I don't recall saying anything about earth residue. It is a compliment, Liara said flatly, taking another bite. Theo bit back a laugh. Well, I'll take it. She ate in silence for a while, her movements deliberate and strange, each bite measured like she was memorizing the experience. The only sounds were the occasional scrape of her fork against the plate and the soft hum of the fridge. Theo watched her out of the corner of his eye, unsure what to make of her. She looked human, more or less, at least from the neck down. Her clothes were strange, though, a silver fabric that shifted colors faintly in the kitchen light, somewhere between liquid metal and woven silk. It clung to her arms but draped loosely at her legs, as though unsure what shape to take. Theo couldn't decide if it was some kind of hyper-futuristic alien jumpsuit or just a really impractical space bathrobe. When she finished the spaghetti, she set the fork down carefully and stared up at the ceiling, her silver eyes unfocused. You good?" Theo asked, swallowing the last of his beer. "Your dwelling hums," Liara said softly, her gaze fixed on the light fixture above the table. "Everything here hums." Theo frowned, following her line of sight. "That's just electricity, light bulbs, appliances, electricity." She rolled the word around like she was tasting it. "You rely on it for survival?" "Pretty much." Liara blinked slowly, her expression unreadable. "Strange. You tether yourselves to invisible forces. Your species lives beneath a web of energy that hums, yet you do not hear it." Theo scratched his head. "I think you might be hearing things we can't." "Yes." She looked at him, her glowing eyes sharp and knowing. "You are deaf to your world." Theo couldn't decide if that was profound or insulting. "Well, we make do," he said, grabbing both plates and standing. "Want something to drink? Water? Soda?" "Water is known to me." "Good. We're on the same page with something," Theo muttered, rinsing off the dishes. While he filled a glass from the tap, Liara rose silently from her seat and wandered toward the living room. Theo glanced over his shoulder and immediately tensed. Hey, don't..." Too late. Liara was crouched in front of the TV, staring at her distorted reflection on the dark screen. Her long, spindly fingers pressed gently against it. "This is a viewing portal?" "It's a TV." Theo hurried over, half expecting her to shatter it. "It plays shows, movies, news." Liara's hair flickered faintly yellow. "It is strange. It reflects but does not reflect." "That's because it's off," Theo explained, rubbing his temples. "Look, can you just, sit or something? I don't want you breaking..." Her hand shot up to silence him. "Shh." Theo froze. "What?" Liara's glowing eyes flicked toward the window. The house suddenly felt quieter, as though something outside had swallowed the air. "They are looking," she whispered. Theo blinked. "Who's looking?" "The Watchers." "Okay, cryptic much? Can you clarify?" "Too soon." Her hair turned a stormy gray, swirling around her face. "Too soon." Theo glanced nervously at the window, but saw nothing except the still, empty street. When he turned back, Liara's expression had softened, and the color drained from her hair until it was a pale, gentle white. "It is nothing," she said, her voice quieter now. "Forget." "You're really bad at being reassuring, you know that?" Liara stared at him, then tilted her head in that strange, bird-like way she had. "I am learning." "Well, learn faster." Theo muttered, because you're officially the weirdest roommate I've ever had. I do not pay rent, she replied evenly. Theo cracked a grin. Yeah, no kidding. For a moment, her lips twitched, just the faintest shadow of what might have been a smile. Then, as quickly as it had come, it was gone. Theo sighed, flopping onto the couch and staring at the ceiling. This was too much for one day. Aliens, humming appliances, watchers, and spaghetti critiques. Tomorrow, he said aloud, mostly to himself, we're figuring out what's going on with you. Liara sat cross-legged on the floor, her glowing gaze fixed somewhere far away. Very well, Keeper, tomorrow. And that was the first time Theo realized, just a little too late, that Liara's tomorrows carried more weight than most. Theo woke to the smell of burning. It wasn't the soft, nostalgic smell of toast that had spent a second too long in the toaster. No, this was the aggressive, acrid stench of something being cremated alive in his kitchen. Liara! Theo shot up, tangled in his blanket like a fish in a net, and fell off the couch with an undignified thud. What are you? Before he could finish, a plume of black smoke drifted from the kitchen doorway, followed closely by Liara herself. Her silver eyes were wide, and her hair had shifted to a frazzled shade of charcoal gray. She held a spatula in one hand and what looked like the charred remains of a pancake in the other. I attempted food, she said, her voice completely calm despite the apocalyptic scene behind her. Theo scrambled to his feet, coughing. Are you trying to set the house on fire? Pancakes aren't supposed to smoke. What did you do? I followed your visual instructions, Liara replied, holding up the empty pancake mix box like evidence in a courtroom. One must pour and then heat. Theo peered over her shoulder into the kitchen and immediately regretted it. The stovetop was covered in batter explosions. Pancake mix dripped like glue from the counter, and the frying pan, blackened and clearly traumatized, sat in the middle of the chaos. Theo blinked. Why does it look like a meteor crashed in here? Liara tilted her head. A meteor is larger. That wasn't a literal, oh, never mind. Theo pinched the bridge of his nose and took a deep breath. Okay, new rule. You don't cook unless I supervise. Deal? Cooking is dangerous, Liara said solemnly, holding up the carbonized pancake for inspection. This food attempted to resist. It didn't resist. You burned it. Theo snatched the spatula out of her hand before she could declare war on his other kitchen supplies. Why didn't you wake me up if you were hungry? You are vulnerable when dormant, Liara replied, as though explaining the behavior of a strange animal. It did not seem wise to disturb your fragile resting state. Theo stared at her. I'm not fragile, I was just asleep. Normal people wake each other up if they're about to destroy the kitchen. Liara blinked her glowing silver eyes, unimpressed. Humans are fragile. I stand by my assessment. Theo groaned, turning back to the stove to start cleaning up. I'm not having this conversation before breakfast. Liara studied him quietly for a moment, then wandered over to the window. Her hair, still shifting through dark shades of gray, lightened slightly as she stared outside. Theo glanced up, noting the odd tension in her posture. For someone who was never quite still, Liara looked almost frozen now, hands pressed against the glass, her glowing eyes fixed on something he couldn't see. What's out there? Theo asked, pausing mid-swipe with a dishcloth. The sky. Yeah, it does that. Just sits there, looking skyish. Liara didn't respond. Her hair flickered faintly blue now, and Theo wasn't sure if that meant she was sad, thinking, or just processing his sarcasm. He set down the dishcloth and walked over to stand beside her. Didn't you say you don't know how you got here? He asked, peering out the window with her. The street was empty. A breeze rustled the trees, and sunlight glimmered off parked cars. Nothing looked unusual. I do not. Do you remember anything before you showed up here? Liara's gaze didn't shift. Pieces, fragments, like shards of a broken pane. Theo frowned. What's the last thing you remember? Her silver eyes narrowed slightly, as though she were pulling the memory out of something heavy and resistant. The air was not like this. It hummed, sang, with energy. The sky was not blue. It was vast, open, black as silence, and scattered with fire. Theo blinked. Like space? Liara tilted her head. You call it that. Space, empty. But you are wrong. She placed a fingertip against the window, tracing an invisible line. Space is not empty. It is full. The hum is everywhere. Theo shivered, though he wasn't sure why. There was something in her voice, something wistful and ancient, like an echo bouncing off forgotten walls. You think you came from out there? Theo asked softly. Yes. Like in a spaceship? Liara frowned. I do not recall a vessel, only falling. Falling. Pieces of the sky. And then, I was here. She finally looked at him, her silver eyes bright and unblinking. Why did I fall? Theo didn't know how to answer that, so he deflected the only way he knew how. Poorly. Maybe you missed the ground and hit my trash can instead. Liara's hair flickered yellow. You jest. A little. He shrugged. It's kind of my thing. Her gaze lingered on him a moment longer, then returned to the window. Jokes are strange. They are noise without purpose. That's where you're wrong. Theo grinned. Jokes make the mess feel smaller. They're like duct tape for the soul. Liara considered this, her hair rippling faintly silver blue. Duct tape sounds valuable. It is. It fixes everything. Theo leaned against the counter, forcing himself to sound casual. So, falling from space, how are you not, dead? We humans tend to splat when we hit the ground from too high up. Liara didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted upward again, toward the unassuming blue sky. I am not like you. Well, yeah. I figured that out when you glowed and ate spaghetti like it was a crime scene. This body, she said softly, almost to herself, is resilient. It was made to endure. But it is limited. Theo's eyebrows shot up. Made? Liara turned away from the window, her hair shifting back to its pale, weightless white. It is not important. Theo crossed his arms. It kinda sounds important. It is a story for another time, Keeper. Theo sighed. You're really good at avoiding questions, you know that? Liara's lips twitched faintly, another almost smile. I am learning. Before Theo could press her further, the doorbell rang. They both froze. Theo turned slowly toward the door, his pulse spiking. Were you expecting someone? No, Liara whispered. Her hair darkened again, swirling in a stormy haze. Theo hesitated. It's probably just a package. Do not answer it. Theo blinked. Why not? They are looking. Theo stared at her. Who's they? Liara didn't answer. She backed away from the window, eyes wide and unblinking, her silver glow dimming ever so slightly. The doorbell rang again, louder this time. Whoever was on the other side, they weren't going away. Theo swallowed hard. Okay, he thought. This just got a whole lot weirder. Theo stared at the door as if it might spontaneously combust. The bell had stopped ringing, but now a rhythmic knock reverberated through the house. 3 steady taps, slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat. See? It's probably just the mailman or a neighbor, Theo whispered, though his voice wasn't very convincing. I get random packages all the time. Could be socks. People love sending socks. Liara didn't look comforted. Her hair, once drifting like silk, now coiled and knotted around itself, a dark gray storm hovering just above her shoulders. She stood perfectly still, her glowing silver eyes locked on the door. They are here, she whispered. Theo glanced at her nervously. Okay, but who? The tax collectors? Salespeople? Jehovah's Witnesses? What are we dealing with here? Liara didn't answer. She only raised her hand slightly, Fingers splayed toward the door as if she were trying to feel something. Theo groaned. "Fine, I'll open it. If it's Girl Scouts, we can grab a few boxes of Thin Mints and—" "Do not!" Theo froze mid-step. "You're being super ominous right now, Liara. Explain." Liara looked at him sharply, her voice low and urgent. "There are watchers. They follow, they listen, they search. They are not here to sell cookies." Theo frowned. "Wait, are you saying they're looking for you?" Liara nodded once, slowly. Theo blinked. "Okay, now you're just being cryptic. You're saying aliens have— what? Some kind of search team after you?" "Yes." "And they're outside? Right now?" "Yes." The knocks came again. Louder this time. Heavier. Theo's entire body tensed, as if every nerve had decided to quit its job. He turned to Liara with wide eyes. "How do they know where you are? Did you leave like space fingerprints or something?" "I do not know," Liara said, though her gaze remained fixed on the door. "But they are close." Theo rubbed his face with both hands, panic bubbling in his chest. "You couldn't have mentioned this sooner? Maybe before you started redecorating my kitchen with pancake fallout?" Liara tilted her head, unbothered by his rising volume. "Would it have changed anything?" "Yes, it would have given me time to pack a go bag, snacks, a toothbrush, stuff that matters." A loud thud at the door interrupted him. No longer a knock, but something heavier, like a fist or a boot. Theo jumped, his heart hammering. "Okay, nope, I am not equipped for alien bounty hunters before coffee." Liara stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "You must decide. Do we flee, or do you open it?" Theo gawked at her. "Open it? Why would I— Are you out of your mind?" She arched a pale brow. "It is your dwelling, and it's your fault they're at my door." Another thud. Then silence. Theo glanced at Liara, and back at the door, his palms slick. He thought about running, grabbing Liara and bolting out the back door. But how far would they get? If whoever, or whatever, was out there could track Liara to his house, they probably weren't going to be thrown off by a short jog through the neighbor's rose bushes. He grabbed the nearest thing resembling a weapon, a half-empty broomstick left from a failed DIY project, and crept toward the door. "If I die, I'm haunting you forever, just so we're clear." Liara tilted her head. "Haunting? You'll find out soon enough." Theo took a deep breath, steeling himself. Slowly, he reached for the doorknob and— "Delivery." Theo froze. He blinked, his hand still hovering over the knob. "What?" "Package for Theo Jenkins," a very human voice called through the door. "You gotta sign for it." Theo and Liara exchanged glances. Theo frowned. "That doesn't sound like an alien search party." Liara didn't relax. "Voices can lie. You're paranoid. I am alive because of it." Theo sighed. One way to find out. He turned the knob and cracked the door just enough to peek through. On his porch stood a very ordinary-looking delivery man in a brown uniform, holding a large rectangular box under one arm and a tablet in the other. He looked bored, annoyed even, like Theo's existential panic had put him behind schedule. "Mr. Jenkins?" Theo opened the door a bit more, broomstick still clutched in his hand. Yeah, that's me." "Need your signature," the man grunted, holding out the tablet. Theo squinted at him. He looked normal. Too normal, maybe. His hair was slightly disheveled, his sneakers scuffed. Definitely not an alien bounty hunter. But Theo's grip on the broomstick didn't loosen just yet. "Who sent the package?" The man shrugged. "I don't check, I just deliver. You signing or not?" Theo hesitated, then finally scrawled a signature onto the tablet with a shaky hand. The delivery man grunted his thanks, dropped the box at Theo's feet, and stomped back toward his truck without another word. Theo watched him leave, the rumble of the truck fading into the distance. He turned back to Liara, who was hovering in the doorway like a very judgmental shadow. "See? Not aliens," Theo said, dropping the broomstick with an exaggerated sigh. "Just some poor guy doing his job. You can chill. Liara stepped cautiously onto the porch, her hair still faintly gray. She stared down at the box, her silver eyes narrowing. What is in it? I don't know. Socks? I keep telling people I don't need more socks. Liara didn't laugh. She crouched beside the box, pressing her ear against it like she expected it to start humming. Theo rolled his eyes. It's not a bomb, Liara. Relax. I do not trust strange objects. Join the club. He crouched down next to her, pried the box open, and pulled out a very large, very shiny, very not normal metal cylinder. Theo stared at it. Okay, that's not socks. The cylinder was sleek and silver, about the size of a thermos, but it had strange markings etched along its sides, symbols that looked more like living, flowing script than anything mechanical. As Theo turned it over in his hands, the symbols glowed faintly blue. Liara's hair shifted to a pale white, her gaze sharp. Where did this come from? You're asking me? Theo squeaked, holding it out at arm's length like it might bite him. I thought this was some weird Amazon thing. Liara reached for it slowly, her fingers hovering over the glowing symbols. This is not of your world. Theo groaned. Yeah, I gathered that much. The symbols pulsed, and a low hum filled the air. Liara's silver eyes widened. It's calling, she whispered. Theo's stomach dropped. Calling who? Liara looked at him, and for the first time, Theo saw something almost like fear in her expression. Them. The cylinder hummed. It wasn't loud, but it filled the room, low and steady, vibrating the air like the sound of a cello string plucked by invisible hands. Theo stared at it frozen, as though any sudden movement might make it explode. Liara, on the other hand, looked utterly transfixed, her glowing silver eyes fixed on the swirling symbols. Liara. Theo's voice wavered. Why is it doing that? I didn't even press a button. It does not need one, she said quietly, her pale hair drifting around her like underwater silk. The hum grew deeper, resonating in Theo's chest. He sat back on his heels, blinking. Okay, well, I vote we don't keep holding the mystery tube that just randomly came to life on my doorstep. Liara ignored him, her slender fingers hovering millimeters above the glowing surface of the cylinder. It is a key. A key to what? A spaceship? A secret alien treasure vault? The ultimate recipe for pancakes that don't burn? It is a signal, Liara said softly, her hair starting to flicker with pale streaks of blue. Calling. Reaching. Theo frowned. Calling who exactly? Because if it's calling for pizza, I'm fine with that. If it's calling for anything else, anything involving giant spaceships, ominous figures in trench coats or tentacles, I'm not interested. She tilted her head toward him. You make noise when you are afraid. That's called humor. It's a coping mechanism. Your coping mechanisms are noisy. Well, so is your alien thermos, Theo shot back, pointing at the cylinder which now pulsed faintly with each hum. Can we please put it down before it summons something we can't handle? Liara didn't move. Her gaze was locked on the object, her silver eyes reflecting the soft blue light. It is searching for me, she said. For my kind. Theo's stomach did a slow flip. And is that good news or bad news? Liara finally looked at him. That depends. On what? On who arrives first. The humming stopped. The sudden silence was deafening. Theo blinked and realized he'd been holding his breath. The air felt thicker, heavier somehow, like the calm before a summer storm. Liara carefully set the cylinder on the floor, its glow fading to a dull, harmless gray. Theo scooted back a few feet. Is it done? For now, Liara murmured, her brow furrowing as though she were trying to solve a puzzle no one else could see. Great. Cool, good talk. Theo rubbed the back of his neck, his nerves still jangling. So, just so I understand, this thing shows up on my porch, delivered by a perfectly normal human mailman no less, turns itself on without warning, and broadcasts an alien bat signal across the galaxy. That about sum it up? Liara blinked. Bat signal. Theo sighed. It's a... Never mind. Pop culture references are wasted on you. I am unfamiliar with your cultural icons. You're unfamiliar with everything, Liara. I've had you here for what, 2 days? And now we've got glowing cylinders sending out space texts to who knows where. Liara tilted her head thoughtfully. I believe this may be your fault. Theo froze. My fault? My fault? How exactly is this? He gestured wildly to the now inert cylinder. My fault? You opened the door. Oh, don't you dare pin this on me. You're the one who fell out of space and showed up at my trash can. That is not my fault either. Theo groaned and sank back onto the floor, scrubbing his hands over his face. I need a vacation, or a sedative. Liara stared at him for a long moment, her expression oddly neutral despite the chaos they now found themselves in. Then, very quietly, she said, Thank you. Theo dropped his hands and looked up at her. For what? For letting me in. Theo blinked. For a brief second, her alien intensity melted away, leaving her looking, strangely, human. Her silver eyes softened at the edges, and her voice, usually so calm and detached, carried the faintest note of something he couldn't quite place. Gratitude? Sadness? Both? You're welcome, Theo muttered, feeling awkward under her gaze. Though I'm starting to wonder if I just doomed the whole planet. Liara straightened, her focus shifting back to the cylinder on the floor. We must move. Theo frowned. Move where? Somewhere less visible. Theo glanced around his small, cluttered living room. We're not visible now. You are surrounded by others of your kind, Liara said, pointing vaguely toward the walls. Neighbors. They see. They listen. Theo winced. Yeah, that's called living in the suburbs. Unless you've got a spaceship parked out back, we don't have a lot of options. I do not require a spaceship. Theo raised an eyebrow. Okay, well, I do. You're not the one who has to explain to the HOA why the house suddenly looks like a crater. Liara ignored him and crouched beside the cylinder again. Her hair, now shifting between white and faint silver, rippled as she ran her hands carefully across its surface. It is dormant, but not for long. Theo hesitated. And when it wakes up? Liara looked up at him, her expression grave. They will come. Yeah, you've mentioned they a lot, but I'm still fuzzy on who they actually are. Liara stood, her gaze locked on his. Those who would return me to silence. Theo frowned. Silence? You mean like death? The word dropped into the room like a stone, and Theo's heart stuttered. For all her strange calm, the look in Liara's eyes was deadly serious. He swallowed hard, trying to keep the rising panic at bay. Okay, you're officially scaring me again. You should be afraid, she said softly, but you should also prepare. Theo threw his arms up. Prepare for what exactly? I don't even know what we're dealing with. How do you prepare for alien assassins or bounty hunters or whatever this is? Liara's hair shifted faintly blue. You adapt. Theo snorted. Oh, great advice. Super helpful. I'll just adapt my way through an interstellar manhunt, no big deal. She regarded him quietly, then turned back to the cylinder. Your humor is noise again. Yeah, well, you haven't earned my silence yet, Theo grumbled, though he knew she wasn't wrong. His jokes were getting louder. The cylinder let out a soft click. Both of them froze. Theo's voice dropped to a whisper. Please tell me that was a normal, harmless click. Liara didn't answer. She bent closer, one hand hovering above it, as the symbols glowed faintly blue again. Theo grabbed a couch pillow and hugged it to his chest, because that seemed like the appropriate human response to impending doom. Oh, fantastic. It's waking up again. I hope it brought snacks. Liara turned to him, her eyes alight with that otherworldly glow. We leave now. Theo blinked. What? Where are we supposed to go? She pointed toward the window. Anywhere but here. Theo stared at her. I'm starting to think I should have just let you keep digging through my trash. Liara turned toward the door, her hair shifting back to a pale white. And yet you did not. Theo sighed, tossing the pillow aside as he grabbed his keys. Yeah, I'm a real saint. Let's go before your alien Amazon package decides to get loud again. And with that, they left. Two mismatched fugitives against a galaxy that apparently was starting to pay attention. It was strange, Theo thought, how a life-or-death alien escape could start in the most mundane way possible, climbing into his beat-up 2007 Honda Civic and backing carefully out of his driveway. The glowing alien cylinder, now wrapped tightly in an old bath towel and stuffed into Theo's gym bag, sat ominously in the passenger seat, like some cursed artifact from a garage sale gone horribly wrong. Liara perched in the back seat, motionless and silent, her glowing eyes scanning every shadow beyond the car window. If Theo didn't know better, he might have mistaken her for an unsettling mannequin. "Hey, just curious," Theo said, trying to sound casual as he kept both hands on the wheel. "Do your alien pursuers have spaceships, like big ones?" "Yes," Liara replied without hesitation. Theo winced. "That's great, because I think they'll really struggle to find us in my 10-foot-wide Honda with the bumper falling off. Truly, the epitome of stealth." Liara's gaze flicked to him in the rearview mirror. "Is sarcasm your only survival skill?" "Clearly, because speed isn't," Theo muttered, slapping the dashboard as the car wheezed onto the highway like it had just climbed Mount Everest. It was nearly midnight, and the road stretched out like an endless black ribbon under the glare of streetlights. Sparse traffic rolled along beside them, oblivious to the impending galactic calamity brewing in Theo's back seat. He found the contrast surreal. Here they were, outrunning space bounty hunters, but across the road, someone in a Ford Focus was probably just headed home with a rotisserie chicken. "Where exactly are we going, Liara?" Theo asked, glancing nervously at his fuel gauge, which was teetering dangerously close to empty. "Because at the moment, my plan is head vaguely that way and pray." "We must reach an open space," Liara said, her voice soft but steady. Theo frowned. "Like, emotionally? Or geographically?" "Geographically." "Right, of course." He exhaled, focusing on the road ahead. "Any particular reason?" "Because I gotta tell you, cornfields are about as open as it gets around here. You'll get all the space you need, plus some cows for company." Liara ignored his commentary, her focus sharpening on something unseen. "A clear horizon will allow me to use the device without obstruction." Theo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "And what happens when you use the device? Something loud and noticeable, I assume?" "It will send a more direct signal, a beacon." "Because the last one wasn't direct enough?" Liara tilted her head, considering. "This will narrow the call. It is a message to those who would help." Theo's stomach flipped. "And if the wrong people pick it up?" Her silver eyes met his in the mirror. "Then we run again." "Fantastic. Love this plan. Real solid," Theo muttered. "Okay, new question. Do aliens know what gas stations are?" Liara blinked. "Gas stations?" "Yeah, because we're stopping at one." "Is it safe?" "It's the middle of nowhere and sells terrible coffee. No one important goes to gas stations at midnight. That's kind of their whole vibe." And the gas station appeared out of the darkness like an oasis of fluorescent light, humming faintly against the otherwise silent night. There were two pumps, a single rusted pickup truck parked off to the side, and a flickering sign advertising soda 2 for 1. Theo pulled up to a pump, turned off the engine, and let out a long breath. "Okay, pit stop. You stay here. I'm going to get us gas, snacks, and maybe answers to life's existential questions." Liara frowned. "You are abandoning me?" Theo turned to look at her. "First of all, I'm not abandoning you. Second, what do you think I'm going to do, leave you alone with a gym bag full of space thermos? Third, no offense, you're not exactly low profile. You glow, and you don't blink enough." "I blink sufficiently." "You don't. It's unsettling." Liara narrowed her eyes. "I will remain here." "Good call." Theo grabbed his wallet, zipped up the gym bag tighter, and stepped out into the cool night air. He muttered to himself as he swiped his credit card and started fueling up. Why couldn't I have found a nice stray dog instead? Dogs don't come with intergalactic manhunts. Dogs just want treats and belly rubs. As the pump clicked and whirred, Theo glanced nervously back at the car. Liara's silhouette sat rigid in the back seat, her glowing eyes faintly visible through the window. He sighed and headed inside the gas station. The cashier, a lanky teenager with acne, wearing a name tag that said Steve, barely looked up from his phone as Theo entered. The smell of burnt coffee and bleach lingered in the air. Theo grabbed a bottle of water, 2 bags of chips, and, because he felt vaguely heroic, a pack of gummy worms. Steve looked up just long enough to grunt. Anything else? Theo drummed his fingers on the counter. Yeah, got any advice for handling galactic fugitives and potential alien bounty hunters? Steve blinked, chewing his gum slowly. No? Theo nodded. Fair. Just checking. Steve rang him up without further comment. Back at the car, Theo handed 1 bag of chips to Liara, who examined it as though it might bite her. What is this? Food, Theo said, tearing open his own bag. It's corn-based, salty, terrible for you, delicious, the cornerstone of human survival. Liara sniffed the bag suspiciously. It does not appear edible. Well, neither did the mystery cylinder, but you seem happy to touch that. She gave him a blank look, and Theo sighed. Fine, don't eat it, but don't complain when you're hungry later. As Theo crunched loudly on his chips, Liara turned her gaze out toward the dark horizon. The flat, open farmland stretched endlessly, interrupted only by a thin line of trees in the distance. It is time, she murmured. Theo stopped mid-crunch. Time for what? Liara reached for the gym bag. The cylinder, as though responding to her presence, began to glow faintly from within its makeshift towel cocoon. Oh no. Nope. What are you doing? Theo said, fumbling to grab her hand. We're still parked next to a gas station. Let's not activate alien beacons next to flammable liquids, yeah? I will be careful, Liara replied, unbothered. You can't promise that, Theo yelped. But it was too late. She held the cylinder aloft, unwrapped, and Theo's stomach dropped as the symbols flared to life. Bright, electric blue, brighter than before. The hum returned, deeper, vibrating in the pit of his chest. The wind outside picked up, whistling through the cracked windows. Theo gripped the steering wheel, as though it might help. If we blow up, I'm blaming you. Liara didn't respond. Her eyes shone like liquid silver as the hum deepened, resonating into the world around them. Theo swore he saw the air ripple just slightly, like heat waves off pavement. And then, from somewhere far above, a light appeared. Small at first, a single pinprick in the night sky. Theo swallowed hard. What did you just do? Liara looked out at the horizon, her face serene. I called for help. The pinprick of light in the sky grew larger. Theo squinted upward through the windshield, gripping the steering wheel as though it could save him from what was coming. That's a ship, isn't it? He asked, his voice a mix of awe and pure, unfiltered panic. Liara nodded, the faint glow from the cylinder casting her face in an ethereal light. It is a response. Okay, that's great, Theo shouted, his words shaking as his nerves frayed. They responded. A plus communication skills. Now what? Do we, file a space parking permit? The ship, if that's what it was, descended in slow, silent elegance, leaving a streak of silver light in its wake. The sky itself seemed to hush in reverence. Theo wanted to take a picture for posterity, but figured there wasn't a filter on Instagram that could do this moment justice. You're calm, he muttered, glancing back at Liara, who sat with a serene expression, her hands folded neatly over the now dormant cylinder. Why are you so calm? I feel like I'm about to meet God, or whatever God's alien cousin is. They are not divine beings, Liara replied softly. They are my people. Theo turned to stare at her. Right. Your people. He forced a chuckle. That's good then. Friends. Rescuers. Maybe they have snacks. As the ship hovered low above the field, silent but impossibly vast, its smooth metallic surface reflected the world below like a warped mirror. Lights shimmered along its surface, blue and white, arranged in patterns Theo couldn't make sense of. He leaned forward, captivated despite himself. Would it be inappropriate to say wow? He asked. Liara tilted her head. It is appropriate. The humor in her response startled him. He grinned, despite the nerves. Good. Because wow, you weren't kidding. This beats every sci-fi movie I've ever seen. The ship descended further, and a faint hum vibrated through the air. Theo felt it in his bones, like a low-frequency sound shaking dust out of forgotten corners. A ramp extended, seamless and smooth as though it grew organically from the ship's body. The glow of it was soft, almost inviting. Theo exhaled, long and slow, then turned to Liara. So, that's your ride, huh? Yes. She reached out, gently resting a hand on his shoulder. The touch was brief but surprisingly warm. Thank you, Theo. He blinked. For what? Providing a gym bag and an above-average driving experience? Her lips twitched into what he realized might be the alien equivalent of a smile. For compassion. For once, Theo didn't know what to say. A lump formed in his throat, unbidden. Well, hey, he managed, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Anytime. I mean, maybe not any time, but you get it. She rose from the back seat, her movement fluid, the faintest shimmer of her luminescent presence filling the small space. Theo felt something change as she opened the door. The air shifted, charged with the strange energy of farewell. Wait. Theo scrambled out of the car after her, stumbling slightly as he hit the uneven ground. The glow of the ship bathed them both in pale light, and for a moment, it felt as though the two of them stood outside time itself. Are you sure this is it? He asked. I mean, you just got here. Liara turned to him, her silver eyes softening. I do not belong here, Theo. He shoved his hands in his pockets, looking at his scuffed sneakers. Yeah, I guess that's fair. She paused, as if sensing the weight in his voice. But you do belong here. Theo glanced up. What's that supposed to mean? You have a place, a purpose, even if you do not yet see it. Theo laughed awkwardly, though it came out hollow. Sure, I'll put that on a motivational poster. Be your purpose, Theo. Her expression remained unchanged, serious. You are more than you realize. He didn't know how to respond to that. Well, thanks for thinking I'm more than a sarcastic guy in sweatpants, he said, trying to lighten the moment. You're probably overselling me, though. I am not. The hum of the ship grew louder, almost like a gentle call. Liara turned toward the ramp, her figure framed by the surreal silver light. For a heartbeat, Theo felt something tighten in his chest, a mix of relief, sadness, and disbelief that any of this had even happened. She took a step up the ramp, then stopped, looking back at him one last time. Goodbye, Theo. Yeah, Theo said, lifting one hand in a half-hearted wave. Goodbye, Liara, and good luck with, space stuff. With that, she ascended into the ship. The ramp folded smoothly behind her, and the vessel began to lift, its light casting long shadows across the field. Theo shielded his eyes as the ship rose higher and higher until it became just a speck of silver in the vast night sky. Then it was gone. For a long moment, Theo just stood there, staring up at the empty sky. It was almost anticlimactic, the way silence reclaimed everything. Well, he muttered to himself, that's probably going to be hard to explain at therapy. Theo sat on his porch, nursing a cup of coffee as he stared at his front yard. It was funny, he thought, how quickly life had returned to normal. The trash bins were back where they belonged, the neighbors still argued about lawn care, and his car still wheezed when he started it. And yet, everything felt different. He couldn't stop seeing the stars in a new way. They weren't just points of light anymore. They were potential. Stories. Homes. He smiled faintly, shaking his head as he took a sip of coffee. Aliens rummaged through my trash, and here I am, waxing poetic about the universe. The world around him seemed a little quieter, a little softer now. As he sat there, lost in thought, something caught his eye, tucked against the corner of the porch railing. He leaned over and picked it up. It was a small, strange stone, smooth and cool to the touch. It shimmered faintly when the sunlight hit it, much like the glow of Liara's cylinder. A note, scribbled hastily on a scrap of paper, was wedged beneath it. Theo, even the small things matter. Thank you. Theo stared at the note for a long time, his chest tightening again. Then he smiled, a small, genuine smile that felt like it belonged there. Even the small things, huh? He murmured. He slipped the stone into his pocket, stood up, and went inside. Somewhere out there, in the infinite dark of the universe, Liara was home. And somehow, Theo realized, he was home too. Maybe she was right. Maybe he was more than he realized. And maybe, just maybe, the universe wasn't done with him yet.